All right. Good evening, everybody. Good morning to everybody, depending where you are. Welcome to everybody around the world, and welcome to all my subscribers. Just spend a few minutes here, very, very quickly. Just wanted to point out something. I believe I called it first, or I'm calling it first. I haven't seen anybody else point this out. I really don't think it takes rocket science to figure this out. And no pun intended. Ha ha ha. I didn't even plan that one. But the Artemis mission, right? Here we go. Artemis mission. What was one of the most significant things about the point of the Artemis mission? One of the most significant things is that, yes, they'll go further than any astronaut has gone before. That's not a big deal. Yeah, it's interesting. But the big deal is they will see and did see more of the moon than any human ever has, including the dark side of the moon. So they had a quite unparalleled first-hand view, them and their instruments, of the dark side of the moon. Now, we all know in UFOlogy that for decades and decades and decades, it has long been said that there is an alien presence on the moon. Okay? And putting all the wild conspiracies and theories aside, saying that I'm not saying this, whichever one is right or wrong. I'm just saying putting the theories to the side, like, oh, the moon is hollow, the moon is a spaceship, putting all the fantastic theories aside and just looking at the most basic, simple ones. Is there an alien presence on the moon? Well, that's one thing that we can all agree on in terms of UFOlogy's opinion, right? Putting aside the more extreme theories, we can all pretty much agree in UFOlogy that yes, it has been alleged that there's an alien presence on the moon. There is some degree of inhabitation by whatever extraterrestrials. Maybe one type, maybe many different types, doesn't matter, but there is some level of presence there and some degree of structures. Even if it's one building or one tower, it's said that there's a pinnacle type tower there that's many kilometers tall. Whether it is, whether it isn't, that's what we all tend to believe, that there is some type of presence and infrastructure there belonging to extraterrestrials on the moon, and that it's active, not that it was abandoned millennia ago, right? So this is what we all believe in UFOlogy. This is what we all want to believe and what we choose to believe. Now, if there really is such on the dark side of the moon, okay, and remember, in all of human history, we were never, as far as we know, and most likely, we never flew to the moon before we did back in the 60s, right? No human in history ever built a rocket ship or a spaceship and flew up to the moon and blah, blah, blah. So, back in the 60s with the NASA missions and all of that, these were the first people to see the moon up close. Yes, people had telescopes before that. I'm not talking about that, right? But in terms of, heading to the moon, going around the moon, getting pictures and this and that that required more modern technology. And it only somewhat recently happened in human history. Okay. So what I'm getting to is, if there really were aliens and some type of infrastructure bases on the moon to whatever degree, it would make sense that the aliens would probably build them on the dark side of the moon. Why? Because it would be less obvious to us humans, right? Because the humans would not only have to spend thousands of years advancing in knowledge, and then hundreds of years advancing in science, and then decades advancing in technology to the point where they could even start flying towards the moon or building instruments to look at the moon, but we would never still be able to see the dark side. So it give them a little advantage. Plus, it might be advantageous strategically in terms of the rest of the cosmos. It might be, just a better hiding place or a more secure location for them, amidst the other potential beings that are out there. So what I'm getting to is that it makes sense that if aliens were to put a base on the moon for whatever purpose, it would make sense that they would put infrastructure on the dark side instead of the illuminated side, right? They could put structure anywhere, but if they had to pick one of the two, and we know that on the illuminated side, there isn't really anything jumping out visible. I'm not saying there isn't. There could be some stuff. There might be some stuff that's been hidden or suppressed. But generally speaking, the bright side, we don't really see anything. It's probably going to be on the dark side. So that's the reasoning. That's the theories people have, the allegations that there is something there. And if it is there, it's going to be on the dark side. So when you stop and think that, the U.S. government is pushing for this, well, the U.S. government is in the works of releasing disclosure, right? We all know that now, and that's fantastic. And I hope they disclose a lot. And we have some prominent people like Mr. Burchett and Mr. I can never say his name right, Mr. Gates or Gates, I don't know, Gates, um, talking and referring to these fantastic things about extraterrestrial interbreeding programs with humans on the Earth. Now, that's something that would normally be classified under extreme theory in UFOlogy, right? Extreme things require more extreme evidence, right? However, when you have such prominent people coming out and saying it, that gives you an idea that, yeah, there probably is something very interesting and maybe concerning going on. Okay, so just put these little factoids together in your mind. We've got disclosure in the pipelines. It's coming. And as it's getting closer to coming out of the pipes for the people, we have some really jaw-dropping information being released, right? And that information about the alien breeding programs was allegedly said by a uniformed, high-ranking military member, not a nobody. Okay, not a Mr. X over phone, but a genuine person in person. Okay, so like I said, when you factor in these factoids that the disclosure is going through the pipelines, they've created those websites, the government's created those websites apparently to release the alien information and videos and such on, whether they do or not. We know it's in the pipeworks. It's very close to happening. When it will happen, this disclosure, we don't know, but we know that it's actually in the works. The president has said that he's pushing for it. Members of Congress are pushing for it. A lot of the public and a lot of figures and individuals are pushing, of some degree of prominence, are pushing for it. So it's very vocal out there in the public eye. So undeniably, we are we are closer to disclosure now than ever before in human history. And when you factor that in together with the very bold admissions and claims coming out at the same time, that's like gearing people up, and the Artemis mission, spending all this money, sending the people back there. Yeah, it's for heritage, it's for certain scientific reasons, but at the end of the day, they weren't going there to land on the moon, on the bright side of the moon again. They weren't going there to, well, they were going there to do a myriad of things, of course. But one of the important glaring things that they were doing was to go and, sorry, my hair, was to go and, sorry, everything's backwards to me here. Let me see. Let's see if I can do it. There we go. Was to see the dark side of the moon. Now, they weren't just in there with the little astronaut eyes looking through the glass of Orion looking at the dark side, right? No. They were up there with instrumentation. So they got photographs, they got videos. Their cameras have zoom. So even if by eye they didn't notice, oh, here's an alien building on the dark side, the cameras very well could have. So I think that these little factoids put together, I think it's quite obvious that the Artemis mission, maybe not entirely, but in part, was meant to accomplish this, which is to go observe and record and document features of the dark side of the moon. Okay? And it'd be perfect timing, along with and coinciding with the disclosure, if they come out and say, hey, public, here's the disclosure. And you remember the Artemis mission we just did? Oh, yeah, this is what they found on the dark side of the moon. You see what I mean? It goes hand in hand, perfect timing. Yeah, when you stop and think, they haven't done another moon mission in, what's the math? I don't know, 50 years or something. And then they do a moon mission that's viewing the dark side of the moon. And it just happens to be after 50 years when disclosures in the pipelines and big juicy things are being said. I think it's quite obvious that it's quite likely the Artemis mission, that was one of its missions, one of its goals for its mission. Okay, so I'm not sure offhand right now if they landed fine and everything, but I'm pretty sure, I hope they do land fine. But, even if they don't, God forbid, the information will still be there. So my point in saying that is I don't think we're laying in wait in peril that we could lose all the information if the capsule doesn't land back on Earth. That's all my point was. So we're going to get whatever they saw up there. That's my point. Maybe they'll claim there's nothing, but this is my point. I don't know if there's something on the dark side of the moon. I haven't been there, but there's a lot of allegations that there is. Okay. So I can only say there could well be, maybe, probably be something on the dark side of the moon. Okay. And there's no way that they would be up there viewing, recording, analyzing all of this stuff, find something extraterrestrial, and then keep it secret when disclosure is coming out. Why do that? You know what I mean? Why do that? So, and I think the very fact that, these individuals like Gates and Burchett, the very fact that they came out to the public eye and ear and made those statements. Why Gates said it first, Burchett was just referencing it, but whatever, right? These two prominent figures, that's the important part, are letting these things cross their mouth in the public's eye, and they're saying it. I'm sure they're not clean and free. They got nothing to worry about. But I think it's safer for someone like them to state such than the average person. They're a little more safe and protected. But still, there must be that they are allowed to disclose these things. I mean, we see Burchett and other individuals say all the time, if not him, others will say things like, "Oh, I was in the skiff." I think Burchett has been in some skiffs. Luna's been in some skiffs, right? But different individuals have been in skiffs, have had other talks where they're told information they can't reveal to the public. And they'll tell us, the public, and say, "Oh, I was in this special meeting or a skiff and I heard all this amazing stuff. It's jaw dropping and life changing, but I can't share any of it with you besides these few little tiny obscure points," right? So when you have individuals who are operating by that type of protocol, who come out one day and say something bigger and bolder, it's fair to say that they have been told that, hey, you can now slip this out, right? Because I am pretty sure Burchett and Gates and all of them are not going to be risking all sorts of trouble by disclosing top secret things. It's a crime. It's illegal to disclose top secret things, right? And they haven't gotten in trouble for saying those things, right? And if we're so close to disclosure, they're not going to still be pulling the wool over everybody's eyes. You know what I mean? They said those things probably because they were told, yes, you can go and say those things. And if they're being allowed to say that degree of thing, then that means the disclosure is ramping up. It also indicates that we're going to get some really juicy information in the disclosure, right? So, but anyways, I really hope, I would be excited to see if they do come out and say, hey, yeah, we saw this stuff on the dark side of the moon. That'd be really cool. And good to see you, man. Welcome, welcome. Always good to see you. And but I'll end on this note as well. I'm friends with a lot of different people online, a lot of different circles of people in different levels and tiers as well, from big to small, and respecting everybody's privacy. There's a lot of misinformation out there and opinion and theory as to the synopsis of the extraterrestrial presence here. People I'm friends with, and I know that I'm friends with, they will believe something so extremely opposite to what I believe that it's literally opposite, but I'm still their friend, right? But there's people from, like I said, all different tiers, from big to small, who are believing, some of them, a lot of them are believing a dark, gloomy type of synopsis for the ET situation. And what I fear is that, and I've got some videos where I talk about this and warn people about this, but one concern that I have is, if they do give disclosure, at first I thought if they give disclosures, that's going to be tiny. It's not going to be big. You know what I mean? Like big stuff. But it's starting to look like it could be big stuff that they reveal. Now, my concern is, what if they do this big reveal, but they start sharing a narrative, this dark, gloomy narrative, so to call it? That's what my concern is, because a lot of people are going to be fooled by it. Now, I don't know, but it's either A or B. It's either that, the authorities will release a false narrative like this gloomy one for a nefarious purpose, but I'll give them credit, and I don't think they're working like that. But if they do, and I know that even in the higher up tiers, of authorities, they're being told this gloomy scenario by different extraterrestrial sources. I know that it's this type of gloomy scenario information and synopsis narrative circulates even amongst the highest tiers and and authorities. I don't know if they conclusively believe it, but I know it circulates, and I know that they're being told this gloomy scenario. Um, so I have reason to believe, I've fair reason to consider that they possibly may actually, like the government, military may actually believe the gloomy scenario that the ETs are telling them. And therefore, in hand, if they give disclosure, they might be relaying what they think is true, but is actually a false narrative from the ETs. This is what I'm concerned about. Because the gloomy scenario basically strips everything away from God, the Bible, even spirituality, period. And it replaces it with a very dark, like I said, gloomy scenario where they claim that the certain ETs have told them, and certain figures in authoritative positions have relayed information to the extent that Earth is a big science project or a breeding ground or a cattle ground, and that humans are really the great secret is we're just here to serve as cattle. This is kind of playing on like what the movie The Matrix was on about, which all links back to the Gnostic outlook on things with the archons and the demiurge and all of that. Um, I've been doing my studies for over 20 plus years in my life. Is going towards 25 years now. And I've studied a lot, and I don't get with those. I've learned, I always study unbiased. I look for the pros and cons for anything. And I try to, from a neutral perspective, digest all the evidence and see if the evidence for or against is stronger in any particular thing, even any particular belief circle, even any particular religion. And I don't believe that the totality of what Gnosticism teaches is accurate. I believe there's certain aspects to it that are accurate, but not the whole overall thing. And I'm not here to talk about that, so I'm not going to go further into that. But my point is the Matrix, type thing that Earth and humans are under control of a superior species that uses us like cattle. In the movie, it was they used us like batteries. That was the great secret. And they had this matrix which fooled people into thinking that they were living a normal life. That's symbolic of, the illusion. And this is what I mean. It ties over to Gnosticism. It is Gnostic. It's clear as day to anybody who studied that stuff. And essentially in how the demiurge and his, nasty archons, they use humans essentially as cattle and feed off of our suffering. Now, this is a very dangerously gloomy scenario because, like I was saying, this narrative that some ETs have been telling the government and military for decades, even going back to the 40s and 50s, is that it's that they are the gods. They created us. They are the creators. Allegedly, they claim, I believe it's lies. There is no God. The Bible's all a lie. All religions are a lie. And that they were it from the start. They are the ones who created us on this planet, and that we weren't even just created here for beneficial, for a benefit to ourselves. We were created here to benefit them, like a product, like cattle. And it goes deeper into saying that they abduct people, they harvest sperm and eggs, they force interbreed with us. I mean, those things are actually taking place. I mean, even biblically, that's what the fallen angels famously did back in the day, and it's what they're still doing now. And these beings, the bad ones, are the fallen angels. So it's history just repeating itself, like First Enoch spoke about. I'm not saying the interbreeding isn't true, but to the point where it's giving the archons, as Gnostics would call it, the negative beings, it's giving them all power. I don't believe that they have all power. I don't believe that they are the creators in all of this. And more importantly, I do not believe that we humans have only been created by them or anyone to serve as some form of cattle for a higher species. Okay? I've argued before, even to my peers, that if we really were a harvestable species on this planet, and that's our purpose here, is to be harvested, in whatever frequency over time. Don't know if it's periodic or all the time. But if that's so true, then we would see more evidence of it. There would be, if a higher negative species owns us, then they would have nothing to fear. They would have no reason to hold back. You know what I mean? Just like how humans force cows into pens and into stalls and all of this, and prod them and zap them and then, shoot them and then butcher them. We don't hold back. We don't hold secret meetings and keep things in secret from the cows, do we? Or the fish. No, we get in a fishing boat, go out, throw out a net. This is if there was a big nefarious species of higher being that ruled us and owned us like that, then they would just be dipping down from the sky any given day and harvesting people. They don't do that. Okay. And the dark gloomy scenario takes it further by saying, and this is the most dangerous part, right? Because evil or demonic type beings, fallen angels, could do things like that. They could do it. I mean, evil humans do terrible, evil, unspeakable, and unthinkable things all the time. Evil beings, whether their body looks, their body could look totally different than human, doesn't make a difference. If they have free will and conscience like we do, they could choose to do bad and supremely bad and unthinkable things as well. So none of those things are impossible. They're all possible, right? I just think it's implausible that if they were that superior and they were negative and evil, that they would have to do things secretly and hide from us. That's ridiculous. And I think that's evidence against that theory. But the gloomy narrative says that they harvest the energy that we exude when we suffer. Okay. And this gets into all of that AC type stuff, if you know what I mean. Ad crow. I won't go further. I don't believe any of that conspiracy stuff. I used to when I was younger. A lot of the science debunks it anyways, like the chemistry science and biology science. But nonetheless, I mean, you can buy that chemical in vials. It's a scientific chemical. It doesn't do what has been portrayed in the movies and in the hype, but it plays into that circle. So what the gloomy scenario says is that these beings, these evil archons, essentially, we're not just here as their cattle, but they harvest us by making us suffer. Right? And that's just more dark and demented, in all brutal honesty, delusional to think that, because there's certain people always demand powerful evidence for powerful claims, but then people believe these type of things with zero evidence whatsoever. There's zero evidence whatsoever that higher beings who are evil created us and put us here so that they can torture and torment us whenever they want, so that they can get a high or basically a high, and feel good from tormenting us. There's no evidence for that. And the gloomy scenario takes it further and says that you can't even escape it by dying, because they say that when humans die on Earth, their souls are removed by these evil aliens, and there's a soul harvesting machine. They claim a soul harvesting machine on the moon. Okay, full circle here, where our souls go when we die. Now, this scenario is as gloomy and dark as it gets, because not only is it stripped away God, the Bible, spirituality, religions, everything from the program, but it strips all hope away from you at all, of existence. This raw existence, your raw existence is stripped of any hope. Even keeping spirituality and religion out of it, or science or higher knowledge of a God or anything, just stripping that away, just your raw animal self, your very raw existence is hopeless if such a scenario is true. Right? It's preposterous and ridiculous, though, when you examine it, because again, why would such a powerful, advanced, and evil species have to do such things secretly? Why couldn't they absorb and get this energy somewhere else, or get their high from somewhere else? They're so advanced they can travel through wormholes and teleport and do everything else. They're millions, billions of years old as a technological civilization, but yet they have to create organic biological creatures and torment them. No, this is just delusional nonsense. There's zero evidence for any of it, but there's a lot of prominent people, who are circulating this type of belief. And like I said, what I'm worried about is that when disclosure happens, that they will push this narrative. And what makes me worried is how Gates is come out and talk about the breeding, this and that there, right? Because to come out with such a bold and dark element, even if that is actually happening, which I believe it is, don't get me wrong, but without, I mean, it's like saying if you have a bucket of 10 important jaw-dropping, earth-shattering facts, you shouldn't just pull out one and plop it down. You would put it down and then accompany it with other things, where you would ease into it. But to just pull that jaw-dropping, earth-shattering thing right out of the bucket, plop it down as itself, like they did, makes me think that the government, military, believes and will in turn push that gloomy narrative on the people. If you see my point, because they were allowed to say those things, like I said earlier. If they were allowed to say that, then what's happened is they've instructed them, hey, take one of those deep, dark bubbles out of the bucket and plop it down. Don't try to butter it up or ease into it. Just plop it straight down. Bam. Whereas if the government and the military and all of them, if they didn't believe the gloomy scenario, then they would have done that easing in or buttering up. You know what I mean? They wouldn't have just plopped this raw thing down for people to think about. That gives me the impression, I hope that I'm wrong, that when disclosure happens, they're going to try and push this gloomy narrative. And I've warned about this in videos over the years. So I can't say it's going to happen because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what each individual thinks. I don't know what the government or the military thinks. I just know that certain beings have told them this, and that what the beings have told them has been circulating for like 80 years, as to what the government and military officially believe as a conglomerate or as individuals. I don't know, because I'm not those people, right? But if they come out and then tell us, hey, yeah, aliens are real, but they made us, and religion, because remember, they keep saying that religion will be shocked, religion will be swept off its feet and eroded away. I keep hearing this, right, from lots of people. And that's allegedly been one of the reasons they kept secrecy, because there'd be so many people who would want to end it, because their lives would be turned upside down, because allegedly they would be told God in the Bible was a lie, aliens made us. You know what I mean? But if they come out and they start telling us, just beware, right? If they come out and start telling us that aliens made us, and then go as far as to, and they made us, they're here, they watch us, and all of that. That's the mundane stuff. But when they add in the gloomy context, the gloomy aspect of, they use us, they own us, we're harvested by them, or we're tormented by them for their pleasure, that's a very dangerous, society destroying scenario. I mean, society would never be the same if they came out and said that, which in turn makes me think that they're only giving, and I've said this for other reasons as well, the only reason they're giving disclosure, I think, is because they know something's coming, and something is coming. I've heard that from some very prominent individuals. And there's a lot of different evidence. I've got videos on this where I talk about it. There's about 20 different sources over a period of about 40 years. Something is coming. Space rocks and aliens are going to be coming, apparently within a year or so. I believe this entirely ties in with the Bible, but I've got other videos talking about that, so I won't waste people's time talking about that here and lengthen this video. But something is coming. So my point is that if they know something's coming and they know a deadline, even just a rough deadline, then they're going to be scrambling to disclose. That's the only way they can maintain control, right? Is by letting the people think and know that, hey, yeah, we've known about this type of stuff for 80 years or 100 years or whatever. We kept the secret to protect you guys so that you could live normal lives. But if they see on the horizon that they know something's coming, if they want to maintain control, any degree of control, they're going to have to spin that story, right? There might be some truth to it, right? That they kept the secret to maintain society's order and all this and that. I believe there is some truth to that, but I don't believe it's the entire reason they kept the secret. Um, but I think they know something's coming, and that this is why they're scrambling for disclosure, because some of the sources that I've shown are the list of 20. A few of them say that we have until 25, 26, or 27 to disclose and reveal this and that there, otherwise it will be revealed, which implies the aliens will be arriving and revealing things against the wishes of the government and military. So, in my opinion, that's why they're scrambling for disclosure. It would make sense then, to go full circle back to my video title, it would make sense then that after 50 years they would say, hey, the deadline's approaching, and we got to come out and tell the people all the big bad stuff, or whatever, the big juicy stuff about aliens, what they know or what they think, right? Again, I don't know what they're going to tell us. It would make perfect sense to be like, hey, let's go make a rocket, fire it up, and go fly around the moon, check out the dark side. Then we can come back and say, hey, oh, look what we noticed in these photos, and throw that in hand with the disclosure. It just makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. So I can't say for sure all of this is going to happen. These are just my theories, but they're not baseless theories. And I just felt like sharing them because I'm here. I want to call it first. That it'd be pretty interesting to see them come out and show some pictures of the dark side of the moon and some structures on there and all of that. Because allegedly, when they did land on the moon, there were UFOs present and they were being watched. And allegedly, they were warned to get off the moon and not come back, which allegedly is why NASA never came back to the moon. Right? So, all of this is very interesting, food for thought. Very, very interesting. But at the end of the day, I believe it all ties into the Bible, but I'm not here to talk about that today. But anyways, I've got lots of videos in my ET UFO playlist, so be sure to go check them out. And yeah, so take care, folks, and God bless.